Hello and welcome to the session on current affairs for the month of December. The purpose of this session are three. One is to give you the list of important topics that you must cover. Two is to discuss with you some questions that will help you judge the knowledge and concept that you have absorbed. And three is to discuss with you some tricks and smartness that you can deploy in attempting the prelims paper. The topics that I have picked for this video are from the Focus magazine of January. So if you feel like that you want to go deeper into any topic, then you can refer this magazine. The first topic that we are going to take up is India State of the Forest Report 2019. UPSC every year asks questions on forest and vegetation cover. Sometimes they ask basic questions on type and distribution of forest cover in general or specific to a protected area like national park. And sometimes they ask questions on initiatives taken by Government of India and international institutions for forest conservation. UPSC has developed this tendency of asking questions from static generic topics in relation to current affair. And in this context, it becomes extremely important for you to know at least the summary of this report because it presents latest data on vegetation cover in India, and from 2017 they have started to touch upon important topics like mangrove cover, wetland within the reserve forest, bamboo forest, forest fires, etc. Let's begin from solving one previous year's question of 2015. Consider the following states: Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Mizoram. In which of the following states do tropical wet evergreen forests occur? See, tropical wet evergreen forest, they are typical tropical forest. They are to be found in areas which satisfy at least two conditions. One is high rainfall of around 250 centimeter and high annual average temperature of around 25 to 27 degrees Celsius. You understand, as we go up in the latitude, the temperature decreases. So, in the western Himalaya, which are supposedly at higher latitude than eastern Himalaya, the temperature would be rising as we go towards west. Himachal Pradesh, to be approximately found here, the temperature is supposedly higher than eastern Himalayas in the region where Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram lies. And this is not the region where high annual average temperature of 25 to 27 degrees Celsius would be found. So Himachal Pradesh is supposedly not a candidate for tropical wet evergreen forest. So you can easily remove off Himachal Pradesh from the option, and even if you do that, you will still be left with two options, and ultimately you have to decide whether you are going to take Mizoram or not. See, from the basic knowledge of your geography, you know that there are two regions in India that have high rainfall. One is the Western Ghat. Western Ghat get high rainfall because of southwest monsoon, and the other is Eastern Himalaya and the northeastern region. This region also gets high rainfall because of both southwest monsoon and northeast monsoon. And specific to northeastern region, there is an effect called as funnel effect because of the hills surrounding this region. There is air circulation, and because of this, there is heavy rainfall in this region. This is the basic that you know already, Western Ghat and Eastern Himalayas. But we do not see the rainfall distribution state-wise. We look at them region-wise. So you don't know what is the average annual rainfall of Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Tripura likewise. But you do know that in northeastern region, the rainfall is high. So there is no reason that you would eliminate Mizoram from here. You have to take both Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram. It's pretty simple question if you look at it very simplistically. So the answer would be option number C. So it's a pretty simple question on distribution of vegetation in India. Now let's see this question that I have made for you from India's State of the Forest Report 2019. Consider the following statements. Gujarat has highest number of wetlands in reserve forest area in India. The forest and tree cover in northeast India has been consistently increasing in last 5 years. First statement is correct. Gujarat indeed has the highest number of wetlands in reserve forest in India. That is followed by Uttar Pradesh and that is followed by West Bengal. But this statement is incorrect. According to the India State of the Forest Report 2019, the forest cover in northeast India has decreased, although minusculely by 0.45%, but still this decrease is alarming and the decrement is happening since last few years. So the answer would be option number A. Let me present to you the most important points from India's State of Forest Report 2019. First of all, it's biennial publication of Forest Survey of India. This is an autonomous body under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And from 2017, this report, apart from assessing forest and tree cover, also gives data on different areas like bamboo resources, carbon stock, wetlands, mangroves, forest fires, etc. Carbon stock is very important because the data on carbon stock will help us to track nationally determined contribution that we have given under Paris Agreement. Present total forest and tree cover, this number you might like to remember, is 24.56%. This is an increment from last report, and last report's data was an increment from the previous report. That means the forest cover in India has been consistently increasing in last few years. You must know this fact. 24.56% is forest cover and tree cover combined. The difference you must know, forest cover are all patches of land where the tree canopy density is more than 10% and the area must be more than 1 hectare. And that is irrespective of the use, ownership and species of the tree. So the tree cover is 21.67%. The rest of it is tree cover. Tree cover will include those areas which are less than 1 hectare in area and have canopy density of even less than 10%. So even if it is more than 1 hectare but the canopy density is less than 10%, so that will not be counted under forest cover. So whatever area that is having trees but that does not fit into the definition of forest cover, that will lie in the category of tree cover. For example, the trees along the highways, the trees in our home, the trees in the park, they all will form the part of tree cover. Forest and tree cover both are important for carbon stock. But there is huge difference. Forest cover actually sustains biodiversity. It is actually habitat of fauna. It sustains life. Tree cover has no such feature but still is important for carbon sink and for oxygen in urban areas. The report points out that forest and tree cover has increased by more than 13 lakh hectare. 13 lakh hectare is 1.3 million hectare. And you would be aware that India has committed 26 million hectare of new area under forest and tree cover under the Bond Challenge by 2030. So this data is important, how much progress we have done in the last 4 years and how much is to be covered in the next 10 years. So it's still a long way to go. This basic information you must know that Madhya Pradesh is the state which has largest area under forest, followed by Arunachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Maharashtra. But in terms of forest cover as percentage of total geographical area, Mizoram has highest percentage, 85.41%, followed by Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Manipur, Nagaland. Northeastern state as a whole has around 65% area under forest cover. Karnataka is the state that has added largest area under forest from the last recorded data, followed by Andhra Pradesh and Kerala. You would take a note of it because Karnataka and Kerala, they are in Western Ghat. And Western Ghat is biodiversity hotspot. So these information are going to be very important for writing the mains answer. Which state has highest mangrove cover in India? West Bengal. Of course it has to be because of the Sundarban. That is followed by Gujarat, Andaman and Nicobar, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. But Gujarat has seen highest increment in the mangrove cover from the previous recorded data. You must also know that mangrove cover in our country has increased slightly by 1.1% from the previous assessment. The report points out that soil organic carbon represents the largest pool of carbon stock in forest, around 56%, and rest of the carbon stock would be from the vegetation in the forest. You should know for the prelims exam that soil organic carbon is the largest terrestrial carbon sink. Overall, the largest carbon sink are oceans, but the largest terrestrial carbon sink is not the vegetation in the forest, but the soil of the forest. This is also a very crucial piece of information that there has been an increment of 42.6 million tons in carbon stock of our country. And you must be knowing that our nationally determined contribution target under the Paris Agreement is to increase the carbon stock by 2.5 to 3 billion tons. So far, 42.6 million tons from the last assessment. So, very long way to go. Report says that 3.83% of reserve forest area are wetlands. Among the states, Gujarat has largest area of wetlands within reserve forest area, and that is followed by West Bengal. Which union territory will have largest area of wetlands within reserve forest area? Make a smart guess and tell me. Total forest cover in the northeastern region is around 65%, and there has been decrement in the forest cover by around 0.45% from the last assessment. So take a note of all these data. These data are important both for the prelims exam and they are going to be a valuable piece of information for writing mains exam. Our next topic is COP25 that was held in Madrid, Spain in the month of December last year. Signatories to UNFCCC are called as parties and their meeting conference of parties. And in December, they met for the 25th time. The main agenda of the meeting was to finalize on carbon emission reduction mechanism under Paris Agreement. But nothing unfortunately was finalized and everything was pushed to COP26. See, any carbon emission reduction mechanism that would be developed at international level to deal with climate change is extremely important for the prelims exam. For instance, let's see this question of prelims 2016. They were asking to identify the correct pairs. And Annex 1 countries was paired up with Cartagena Protocol, Certified Emission Reduction with Nagoya Protocol, Clean Development Mechanism with Kyoto Protocol. Under Kyoto Protocol, for the first time, carbon emission reduction mechanisms were developed, and they were called as Clean Development Mechanism. And Clean Development Mechanism had provisions of giving certification to emission reductions. So certified emission reduction was the purpose of Clean Development Mechanism under Kyoto Protocol, and all the countries did not have the target to reduce their carbon emission. Only developed countries had their target and they were put in Annex 1. So the Annex 1 countries under Kyoto Protocol were the developed countries. So all these three provisions were actually part of Kyoto Protocol. So only third pair is matched correctly. Answer would be option C. Now let's solve this question on the topic. Recently, COP25 of UNFCCC was held in Spain to finalize rulebook under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. What is this rulebook most closely linked with? Whether it is linked with loss and damage or carbon market or technology transfer or setting new nationally determined contribution. The answer you already know, this rulebook is actually to finalize carbon development mechanism. As we just saw in the previous question that under Kyoto Protocol, we had clean development mechanism. And under Paris Agreement, we wanted to graduate from clean development mechanism to sustainable development mechanism. So new carbon emission reduction mechanisms was to be developed under Paris Agreement. But it was such a contentious issue that nothing was finalized even in the morning of the day Paris Agreement was signed. And ever since, this issue has been procrastinated and finally it was to be decided in COP25, but it again failed. Article 6 is a very small article under Paris Agreement because no detailing has been given. It just uses terms like bilateral and voluntary agreements to trade carbon units. But with what mechanism it will be done, it hasn't talked about. It has talked about sustainable development mechanism to replace the clean development mechanism, but still the detailing of it has not been done yet. So the obvious thing to understand is why there is so much of problem in developing consensus under sustainable development mechanism under Article 6 of Paris Agreement. There are three broad problems. One is the problem of carry forward of old credits from the previous clean development mechanism under Kyoto Protocol that developed countries like India, China, Brazil have accumulated. The demand by developing country is that since the carbon credit mechanism was already there in the Kyoto Protocol, so those old credits must be carried forward under the sustainable development mechanism that will be developed under Paris Agreement. But the developed countries don't want it because we have also discussed that the targets were given only to developed countries back then, and the developed countries want a fresh start under Paris Agreement. Then there is a demand of corresponding adjustment to avoid double counting. The issue is, see, if there are two countries A and B, and country A is a developed countries and it has been doing emission reduction and gaining emission reduction certificates. So what this country would do, it would sell this certificate to country B who does not have the technological know-how for emission reduction. But still, to meet the emission reduction target, country B will buy the emission reduction certificate. So, with the help of the certificate, country B can show that I have done so much of reduction, but that reduction would not be done directly by country B, but nevertheless, reduction has been done somewhere else, and country B will take that to its credit because it has bought the certificate. But the only problem here is that country A will also count that in its own book. Because country A has done the reduction, although it has sold the certificate to country B, but that is still counted in the books of country A. And hence there is a problem. Because of the same effort, two people are taking the credit. And there is a third issue raised by the developing country that the new carbon mechanism under Paris Agreement should not allow for transfer of emission reductions across borders as was allowed under Kyoto Protocol without actually generating additional cuts. What developed countries mostly do is they don't do their own emission reduction, and still to meet their reduction targets they do reduction in developing countries through financing their projects and other mechanisms that were allowed under Kyoto Protocol. But now the issue raised is that you do the reduction at least to a certain extent and not transfer all the emission reductions across the border. But these are not the easy things to have consensus on. Developed countries do not want to lose their position, and there is a fear that if they start doing emission reduction in their own nation, that will hurt their economy. The fear is so high, you would understand that US has not done lockdown during the global pandemic of COVID-19 because their economy may be hurt. So you would understand how difficult it would be to be ready for emission reduction within their own borders during normal time. Now we are going to take Global Climate Risk Index 2020. I'll tell you a very important and interesting thing about indices and reports. First of all, it's important for the prelims exam because in the recent time, for the first time, they asked about report and indices in 2015, and ever since there has not been a year in which UPSC has not asked about reports and indices in the prelims examination. So of course, it's important for the prelims exam, but its utility does not end there. The information that you learn in indices and reports, they are very important nugget of information for writing the mains answer. For example, if you have to make a point regarding hunger in India, you can say that in Global Hunger Index, India stands at 102nd position. If you want to make point regarding vulnerability of India due to climate change, you can say that Climate Change Risk Index 2020 has ranked India at 5th position. So it's important for the prelims and it's important for the mains. Let's see this question of 2015. They were asking that who released Ease of Doing Business Index? And everyone knows who is WB, World Bank. Then in 2019, they asked, related to the same question, which one of the following is not a sub-index of World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index? And maintenance of law and order is not the sub-index. Actually, there are 10 sub-indices. Because those 10 sub-indices will become your dimensions of answer writing. When you are dealing with ease of doing business, export, manufacturing, employment and related topics, then they will be very, very handy in expanding your answer. Then let's see this question from 2016 prelims. In the cities in our country, which among the following atmospheric gases are normally considered in calculating the value of air quality index? And from common sense, you can remove carbon dioxide. If you do that, you will have only one option, that will be the answer. Actually, there are 8 components in air quality index. They are PM 2.5, PM 10, carbon monoxide, lead, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, ozone and ammonia. Then this question of 2016, they were asking which of the following parameters are considered in computing Global Hunger Index report. With your common sense and little bit of guts, you can go with option C. At that point of time, generally people did the index and the report and the releasing organization. But for the first time in 2016, they opened up the index and asked the parameters of that index. Difficult to attempt at that point of time, but the option were such like undernourishment, child stunting, child mortality. These are the important things that should be taken into account in computing hunger. And indeed, the answer is option C. Through these questions, you must have understood that regarding indices and reports, UPSC either asks the releasing organization or it get into the parameters and component making up that index. So whenever you do an index, you do these two things for the purpose of prelims exam. Now let's see this question. Global Climate Risk Index 2020 is released by which of the following organization? World Economic Forum, UNEP, World Meteorological Organization, or none of the above? The answer is option D, none of the above, because it's released by an environmental think tank, German Watch. And according to this report, India is the fifth most vulnerable country due to climate change. Japan tops the list, followed by Philippines, Germany, Madagascar, and India. It's important because you can use this in answer writing regarding environment and climate change. It basically takes into account three things: economic loss to GDP, and fatalities. India's current fifth position is a great slip from the 14th position of 2017. This is also a point that you should take note of, that vulnerability of India for climate change is increasing. The next topic is Global Innovation and Technology Alliance. Global Innovation and Technology Alliance is an old platform, but recently in the month of December, it celebrated its 8th anniversary. So was the news, and so is important for the exam, because innovation is always important for UPSC. UPSC has been asking regarding innovation in recent times a lot. In fact, UPSC has also asked an essay topic that innovation is the key determinant of socio-economic growth of a country. UPSC has also asking about innovation indirectly. For example, in 2015, they asked about this living root bridge that are used in Meghalaya. UPSC also asked direct questions on initiatives taken to propel innovation in our country. For example, this question of 2015, which of the following statement is correct regarding National Innovation Foundation? National Innovation Foundation is an autonomous body of the Department of Science and Tech under central government. This is a generic kind of a statement, and it seemingly seems true. Second statement is NIF is an initiative to strengthen the highly advanced scientific research in India's premier scientific institutions in collaboration with highly advanced scientific research institutions. I'm going to tell you a very important thing that will be very helpful in solving prelims paper. Whenever you have national attached to any initiative, that must truly have national character. But if you are saying that this is only for highly advanced research work, only in India's premier scientific institutions, and in collaboration only in highly advanced foreign scientific institutions, that is a very narrow niche, and that doesn't really have a national character. So by common sense, you should consider this statement to be wrong. And rather, this National Innovation Foundation is for grassroots innovation, not for innovation and research in this narrow niche area. So statement 2 is wrong. Answer is option A. Let's see a direct question on Gita, Global Innovation and Technology Alliance. Consider the following statements. It is operated as a public-private partnership. It is headed by Finance Secretary. See, some basic knowledge you must have, and based on that, you can play around with other options given in the question. You have to know that Global Innovation and Technology Alliance is operated as a public-private partnership. This is a correct, basic, fundamental option. But you might not know who heads this. In reading this might not have come up. And if you read generally about Global Innovation and Technology Alliance, this information is not given about the chairman or the CEO of the platform. But UPSC has asked once in 2017 that who appoints the chairperson of Quality Council of India. So similar kind of statements in the questions can be expected in the coming years of prelims. But if you don't know an option, you don't have to leave the question, because there will be only few questions in the paper that you can attempt purely on your knowledge. You have to use your common sense. If you know this already, that it is a public-private partnership, then that is the information sufficient for you to be able to solve this question. Because if it is a public-private partnership, it should have a nature of public-private partnership. It should not be headed by a bureaucrat, because then bureaucratic hurdle, bureaucratic red tapeism will come in, and the organization will lose its public-private partnership character. Although government can very well do it, government can bulldoze the organization even under PPP and make that to be headed by a babu. But logically that should not happen, right? So you go with this common sense and consider this to be an incorrect statement. And indeed it is an incorrect statement. Answer is option A. It is actually headed from one of the officer of CII. Global Innovation and Technology Alliance is public-private partnership between Technology Development Board, under Department of Science and Technology and CII, Confederation of Indian Industry. The basic idea is that government will enable the industry to take up researches in important areas like water conservation, urban mobility, etc. And the industries of India can collaborate with industries of foreign nation and also the government of foreign nation and also take the benefit of various initiatives of government of India. And all these things will be facilitated by government. You should also know that Technology Acquisition and Development Fund to facilitate micro, small and medium enterprises initiated by Ministry of MSME. And this fund is operated through GITA, Global Innovation and Technology Alliance. Now we will do a question on OSIRIS-REx. It will not be fair on my part to show you few questions to highlight the importance of the space science. You already know it's important. You already know there are 2 to 4 questions asked in the prelims exam every year regarding space science. You know that you have to do the major missions of ISRO, NASA, European Space Agency, at least these 3 of them. And one of the important mission in the global space science presently is OSIRIS-REx. This is the first mission that is aimed at bringing sample from an asteroid back to the Earth. And recently it started sending pictures of the asteroid that eventually it will land on and collect the sample from. That's why it was in news. Let's see a question. Recently, Nightingale was in news. What is it? Is it an electric plane made by NASA? Is it the name given to geoportal of ISRO with 3D imaging capabilities? Is it the latest technology to control accidentally caused flames from oil wells? Or it is OSIRIS-REx primary sample collection site from the asteroid Bennu? Ye, Nightingale is the name given to the site on the asteroid Bennu where the OSIRIS-REx mission is going to land and collect the sample from. OSIRIS-REx, as we have talked about, is a mission of NASA and is the first mission that is aiming at collecting the sample from the asteroid and bring it back. So far we had many missions, but they were mostly either flyby or orbiter. It is part of NASA's New Frontier program. New Frontier program of NASA is aiming at studying new celestial bodies, for example, asteroids and exoplanets. And this is the third in the series. The first one was Mission Horizon, where the mission was sent to Pluto, and the second was Juno mission, where Juno aircraft was sent to Jupiter, and third one is this OSIRIS-REx that has been sent to study the asteroid Bennu. Asteroid Bennu is also considered as hazardous because this is 500 km in dia. It's pretty big, and its orbit is inching close to Earth every day. And in 200 years, this asteroid may collide with Earth. And recently, orbiting around the asteroid, the mission has collected picture of the site where it is going to land and collect the sample from, and that site has been named as Nightingale. In the month of December, RBI carried out an open market operation that was dubbed as Operation Twist. Although this is not the standard term that is used by RBI itself, but this is a term used in relation to steps taken by US Federal Reserve Bank, which is done on much larger scale. Operation of RBI was on a much smaller scale, but since it is similar in nature, so it was also dubbed as Operation Twist. Any market intervention, any special mechanism brought about by RBI to stabilize the financial market is very important for prelims examination. For instance, this question of 2013, UPSC asked in the context of Indian economy, open market operations refers to. It refers to purchase and sale of government securities by the RBI. It was very simple, basic, rudimentary question, but UPSC sometimes asks this kind of question. Now let's see this question from Operation Twist. Recently, RBI has carried out a special open market operation dubbed as Operation Twist. Which of the following best characterizes Operation Twist? Buying dollar from the market and simultaneously selling short-term securities, or buying dollar from the market and simultaneously selling long-term securities, or buying long-term bonds and simultaneously selling short-term securities. Actually, this is the answer. Operation Twist is actually buying long-term bonds and simultaneously selling short-term securities. As you would understand, since this operation involves both buying and selling, so there is no problem of liquidity in the market. But then why this is being done? Of course, if RBI is buying long-term bonds, that means long-term bonds will be stabilized. The yield of long-term bond will be stopped from increasing. If the yield of a bond increases, that's not a good sign. See, if a person A bought a bond of rupees 100 units, let's say, and at the end of maturity, he's about to get rupees 110. But the market's confidence is being diminished and the investor's sentiment is being hurt, so the holder of the bond is getting all jittery because he is not sure anymore if he is going to get anything out of this investment. So he would sell this bond to person B at rupees 80 units. Although it seemed like a loss, but that would be a hedge for person A because person A don't even know if he's going to get any penny out of it. So at least he's getting 80 now. So he would look at the bright side. But this person B, since he has bought the bond, he is still hopeful that he might get 110 unit out of this. So see, return for person B is much higher theoretically. From 80 he is getting 110, but person A was getting from 100 to 110. So in this case, bond yield has increased, but this is not a good sign for the economy. So if the bond yield is increasing, people are selling at a lower cost, then instead RBI will start to buy those bonds and stabilize the price and stop the yield from increasing. The purpose is two. First is long-term investment is going to increase. So real estate, housing project, car loan, etc., they are going to get a boost. Secondly, if you see at the timing, it was done in December, budget was about to be presented on 1st of Feb. So in case government needed any room for borrowing because of decreasing fiscal health, then in that case government can issue long-term bond because government is one of the issuer of long-term bond. And bond market has to be healthy for long-term bond in order for people to buy it. So that was also one preemptive measure that was taken by RBI to stabilize bond market so that government borrowing can be enabled. So in short, this is what Operation Twist is. Recently, World Bank has set a target on learning poverty. Poverty and unemployment, these are two such topics which are easy to cover and questions are definitely asked from them. For example, this question from 2019 prelims, in a given year in India, official poverty lines are different in some states than other because, and the obvious answer is because price level vary from state to state. A simple, easy question. Similarly, many times UPSC will ask very basic, simple question on unemployment. These two are related thing and UPSC repeatedly asks on them. In this context, you should be aware what this term learning poverty means. Which of the following best describe the term learning poverty? Unwillingness to come out of poverty, unwillingness to engage in more productive work, transfer of poverty from generation to generation, or the state of being unable to read and understand a simple text by age of 10. In fact, this is the answer. Learning poverty basically is poverty in terms of learning. Learning poverty is defined as being unable to read and understand a simple text by age of 10. This definition is given by World Bank, and World Bank recently has set the target to decrease learning poverty by 50% by 2030, and this has been integrated in various initiatives that World Bank already is taking for poverty reduction. And poverty reduction is the core goal of World Bank, you must be knowing. Recently, World Bank has released a report, and according to the report, 53% of all children in low and middle income countries, India also is a middle income country, suffer from learning poverty. And if learning poverty is not fixed, then SDG 4, all of it will be gone. It's not just learning, it's not just education. The skill development, employment, decent jobs, entrepreneurship, everything will be hampered. And if these things are hampered, it's likely that other SDG goals will also not be achieved. Now we will discuss Partial Credit Guarantee Fund Scheme. The Cabinet in December gave approval to this scheme, and this scheme is to help out reeling NBFCs. Steps taken by the government to support the banking sector, to support the financial sector in general, and of course after the scam of IL and FS, NBFCs becomes important. And for the prelims exam, this is a very important topic. Let's see this question. With reference to the governance of public sector banking in India, consider the following statements. Capital infusion into public sector banks by the Government of India has steadily increased in the last decade. Generally, during the course of preparation, you do not analyze data like this. So you have to use your common sense and your gut feeling in order to attempt this question. Because 1 decade is too large of a time for anything to steadily increase or decrease. And with little bit of intuition, you can attempt this and consider this statement as wrong. In fact, in last 5 years, UPSC has used the same language steadily increased several times, and each time that statement is wrong. So analyzing previous year's question paper also helps a lot. The second statement is to put the public sector banks in order. The merger of associate banks of the parent State Bank of India has been effected. This is a simple factual statement. This is from current affair and everyone would know this. Second statement is correct, first is not, option B is the right option. Now let's see discussion on partial credit guarantee fund scheme. RBI has issued guidelines on operationalizing rupees 1 lakh crore partial guarantee scheme to address liquidity crisis in NBFC. You might fall for this, but actually this statement is wrong because it is not RBI which has done it. It is a measure taken by Government of India, and that makes this statement incorrect. Partial credit guarantee has been offered to public sector banks for purchasing high-rated pooled asset from financially distressed NBFCs. See, high-rated pooled asset cannot come from financially distressed NBFCs, so it's sounding oxymoronic. So obviously this statement is incorrect. And also from common sense, guarantee partial or full cannot be given to assets of stressed NBFCs. So actually it is pooled assets from financially healthy NBFCs. Both the statement here are incorrect. Answer would be D. See, after IL and FS crisis, NBFC is reeling under financial distress. And banks are not ready to give credit to NBFCs. And there is huge liquidity crisis. Government of India has taken several measures in this regard. But this particular measure of partial credit guarantee fund scheme is only for financially healthy NBFCs. Because if the rating of the pooled assets are okay, then it is logical for banks to give them credit. But since the situation has become so bad, banks are getting jittery and they are not ready to give the credit. To incentivize them, Government of India has come up with a scheme, has set aside rupees 1 lakh crore for this particular scheme, and Government of India will partially guarantee. In case there is a default, then partial guarantee will come from Government of India. How much? 10%. So it is too partial, but still it will incentivize the banks to give credit to healthy NBFCs. In the month of December, there were talks going on that India should have free trade agreement with Eurasian Economic Union. Although nothing has been finalized yet, and because of the present global situation, nothing might be finalized in the near future, but still free trade agreement is an important topic under Indian economy, and UPSC has asked questions multiple times in the prelims exam and also in the mains examination. For instance, this question of prelims 2018. Consider the following countries: Australia, Canada, China, India, Japan, USA. Which of the above are among the free trade partners of ASEAN? At that point of time, RCEP was very much in news, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. This was the proposed economic bloc consisting of ASEAN and Japan, South Korea, India, China, New Zealand and Australia. Because ASEAN has individually free trade agreement with all these 6 nations. So the proposal was, let's all of us have a free trade agreement among all of us under Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. But there were problems and finally India did not join this. But this was a news. So the countries not to be counted are Canada and USA. Pretty simple question from current affair. No problem at all. Now let us see this question. Consider the following countries and bloc: ASEAN, Australia, Mercosur, Eurasian Economic Union, Japan. Which of the above are among free trade partners of India? ASEAN definitely is. Australia is not. Mercosur is not. India does not have free trade agreement with Mercosur, but India has preferential trade agreement. Eurasian Economic Union discussion just started, nothing happened yet. India has free trade agreement with Japan. The answer would be D, 1 and 5. Eurasian Economic Union, you must know, was established in 2015. And you must know the member countries, which include Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Russia. This is an important list which you must be knowing. India has free trade agreement with Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, ASEAN, Japan, South Korea. India has with ASEAN, but India has individually with Malaysia as well, Singapore and Chile. As mentioned earlier, India has preferential trade agreement with Mercosur. It may be translated into free trade agreement in future, but not now presently. And negotiations are going on with European Free Trade Association, European Union, and Eurasian Economic Union. For the first time, a new index, Good Governance Index, has been released in India. And since 2015, they have always asked a question on index and reports every year in the prelims. And since it's a new index, obviously it will become important. Indices related to governance has been asked previously in the prelims exam. For example, Ease of Doing Business Index is also an index related to governance. In 2018 prelims, UPSC asked this question, Rule of Law Index is released by which of the following? The answer was World Justice Project. Although it was not very prominently studied, didn't appear very prominently in the test series, but it was in news just a month back before the prelims exam. Good Governance Index has been released by which of the following? Niti Aayog, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, or Ministry of Personal Public Grievances and Pension? The answer is D, Ministry of Personal Public Grievances and Pension. This is an important one. This index can be asked in the prelims exam. This has been launched by Ministry of Personal Public Grievances and Pension, and it takes into account 10 sectors to make the index, and there are multiple subsectors within each sector. Altogether, there are 50 areas which the index use to give up the ranking. Some of the areas are very broad, but you can go through them in order to understand which areas you need to touch upon when you are discussing governance in general and good governance in particular. The sectors that this index consider are agriculture and allied sectors, commerce and industry, human resource development, public health, public infrastructure and utilities, economic governance, social welfare and development, judicial and public security, environment, and citizen-centric governance. The rankings given by the index are not so very important because there are many categories. For example, in the big state category, Tamil Nadu tops the index. In the northeastern and hill state category, Himachal Pradesh is ranked first. In union territories, Puducherry has been ranked first. With this, we have come to the end of this video, although we will have a second part also for the current affairs of December.